Good morning to you, Leanne, and to our SABC viewers at home. I think I'm audible enough. There's a lot of noise where I am. We are at the Primrose. That is where we are, and the residents are protesting. They have decided to barricade roads with the burning tires. They are saying that they don't have money to transport their children. Remember, yesterday I was in Valelisa here in Boksburg. That is where we engage with some of the residents, especially parents, Leanne, saying that it's difficult, extremely difficult for their children to go to school. The issue is that those who are transporting these children, the service providers, decided to park their cars because, according to them, government did not pay them. Yesterday, when I engaged with them earlier, they spoke to me saying that, no, Calvin, tomorrow we are shutting down all the roads, and we are going to those schools, and we are going to make sure that there is no learning and teaching program that is going to take place. Yesterday, later, we spoke to Steve Mabona, who speaks for the Department of Education in Gauteng. He said, no, Calvin, we are aware of the matter, but we have engaged Treasury so that maybe they can be able to assist us with the budget. But let me...
Primrose residents took to the streets early this morning in a wave of anger, confusion, and deep frustration after scholar transport buses failed to operate, leaving hundreds of learners stranded at home and at bus pickup points across the area. The unexpected disruption sparked spontaneous protests as parents, guardians, and community members demanded answers from transport operators and authorities, accusing them of failing the very children who rely on the service to access education. By mid-morning, several roads in and around Primrose were blocked with burning tires, rocks, and debris as residents voiced their dissatisfaction with what they described as ongoing neglect and broken promises regarding scholar transport. According to parents on the ground, the buses that normally collect learners in the early hours of the morning simply did not arrive. Some children reportedly waited from as early as 5 a.m. in the cold, standing at familiar pickup points with their school bags, only to realize hours later that no transport was coming. Many parents said they were not informed of any disruption beforehand, adding to the shock and anger felt throughout the community. As time passed and learners remained stranded, frustration quickly escalated into collective action. Residents say the failure of scholar transport is not an isolated incident, but part of a broader pattern of unreliability that has persisted for months. Parents claim they have raised concerns repeatedly with transport providers, school management, and education officials, but little has changed. For families who depend entirely on the buses, particularly those who live far from schools or cannot afford private transport, the breakdown left them feeling helpless and ignored. Several parents expressed fear for their children's safety, saying some learners attempted to walk long distances to school or waited alone for extended periods without adult supervision. As protests intensified, community members gathered at key intersections, chanting slogans and demanding accountability. The anger was not directed at schools or teachers, residents said, but what they described as a system that continues to fail working-class families. Some protesters accused transport operators of abandoning their responsibilities without explanation, while others blamed government departments for poor oversight and lack of consequence when contracts are breached. The mood on the streets was tense but determined, with residents insisting that their actions were meant to draw urgent attention to the crisis. Parents interviewed during the protest said education is being disrupted unnecessarily, and that children are paying the price for administrative failures. Many pointed out that missed school days add up quickly, affecting academic progress and emotional well-being. Learners preparing for important assessments were particularly affected, with parents worrying that repeated disruptions could have long-term consequences. Some parents said their children had already fallen behind due to previous transport issues, making the current failure even more distressing. Learners themselves voiced disappointment and confusion. Several said they were eager to attend school and frustrated that circumstances beyond their control prevented them from doing so. Older learners expressed concern about attendance records and the pressure of explaining repeated absences to teachers. Younger children, accompanied by parents at the protest, appeared confused by the chaos but aware that something had gone wrong. For many families, the morning's events highlighted how deeply dependent they are on a system that seems increasingly unreliable. As the protest unfolded, traffic disruption spread beyond Primrose, affecting nearby routes used by commuters traveling to work and businesses opening for the day. Motorists were forced to turn back or seek alternative routes as smoke from burning tires filled the air. Some local businesses delayed opening, while others closed temporarily due to safety concerns. Police and traffic officials were eventually deployed to the area to monitor the situation and maintain order, urging calm while engaging with community representatives. Law enforcement presence helped prevent the situation from escalating into violence, although tensions remain high. Officers negotiated with protest leaders, appealing to residents to clear roads while promising that concerns would be communicated to relevant authorities. Protesters insisted they would not disperse without assurances that the scholar transport issue would be addressed urgently. The standoff continued for several hours as talks took place, with residents demanding immediate intervention rather than long-term promises. Community leaders who joined the protest echoed residents' frustrations, saying the failure of scholar transport reflects broader systemic problems within education support services. They argue that access to education does not end at the classroom door, and that transport is a critical part of ensuring equal opportunities for learners. Without reliable transport, they said, children from disadvantaged communities are effectively denied their constitutional right to education. Leaders called for stronger monitoring of transport contracts and swift penalties for service providers who fail to deliver. Some parents revealed that they had already spent money they could not afford on alternative transport options in the past when buses fail to operate. Taxi fares, private lifts, or walking long distances have become coping mechanisms, but these solutions are neither sustainable nor safe. For families living hand-to-mouth, unexpected transport costs place additional strain on already stretched household budgets. Residents warned that unless the situation improves, more protests are likely to follow. Education activists observing the situation noted that scholar transport problems are not unique to Primrose, but part of a wider challenge affecting communities across the province and country. They said underfunding, poor planning, and lack of accountability continue to undermine programs meant to support learners. In some cases, buses are old and poorly maintained. In others, payment disputes between departments and service providers result in sudden service withdrawals. Regardless of the cause, activists argue that learners should never be caught in the middle. By late morning, officials from the Education Department and transport authorities were expected to engage with community representatives, though residents remained skeptical. Many said they had heard similar assurances in the past, only to see little improvement. Protesters stressed that they were not seeking conflict but respect and reliable solutions. They called for clear communication, consistent service delivery, and a commitment to putting children's needs first. As news of the protest spread, messages of support poured in from neighboring communities, who said they face similar challenges. Some parents shared stories on social media of children missing weeks of school due to transport failures, while others urged authorities to treat the issue as an emergency rather than a routine complaint. The situation in Primrose has once again brought national attention to the fragile systems supporting public education beyond the classroom. For many residents, the morning's protest was about more than buses that did not arrive. It was about dignity, accountability, and the future of their children. Parents said they are tired of being patient while their children's education suffers. They argued that when systems fail repeatedly, communities are left with no option but to take to the streets to be heard. While some expressed regret over the disruption caused, most insisted that peaceful protest remains a legitimate and necessary tool for change. As the day progressed, some roads were gradually reopened following negotiations, though the underlying issue remained unresolved. Learners who missed school were sent home, and parents began preparing for the possibility of further disruptions in the days ahead. Community leaders urged residents to remain united and vigilant, promising to follow up on commitments made by authorities. Whether these promises will translate into real improvements remains to be seen. The events in Primrose serve as a stark reminder of how quickly essential services can collapse and how deeply such failures affect everyday life. For the learners who stood waiting in the early morning cold, for the parents who watched helplessly, and for the community forced into protest, the message is clear. Scholar transport is not a luxury, but a lifeline. Until it is treated as such, residents say, their voices will continue to be raised in the streets.